Hi, welcome to Yoga Today. I'm Grace Dubery. In today's creative and energizing flow, you'll want to have a block, but just know that this is always an option for you to use or not. We're going to get started actually on our hands and knees. So you'll just come into a tabletop position on your mat, and then just use the block on its first height. You'll want to place it between your thumbs and your index fingers, getting a good stretch through your hands. And then from that tabletop, maybe just walk your knees back slightly. And then however much you can, you'll start to melt your chest down towards your mat. Keep your hips directly over your knees and just see how far you can go. This is a fairly deep thoracic back bend. And then you just use the block there to give your hands an idea of alignment on where they should be placed. So you can really press down through your index fingers and your thumbs, and then keep a little softness through the elbows, pulling back through the shoulders. One of the options you can do is just bring your forehead down towards the mat. If you'd like to intensify the pose, you'll then extend the front of your neck on the mat, opening up through the front of your throat. You'll just take a few breaths here, breathing deeply into the space between your shoulders and into the very center of the chest. And then after you take about 3 to 5 breaths, just push back up onto your hands, come back into a tabletop position, and then just sit yourself all the way back towards your heels. Once you come back towards your heels, reach the hands behind your back, interlace your fingers, push the palms into one another, and just lift your chest up as much as you can. Broaden through the collarbones, and same thing. You can either look straight ahead, or maybe you start to lift your chin up, gazing at the ceiling or gazing towards the sky. You'll take a few breaths there. On the exhalation, you'll release your hands, and then go ahead and switch the interlace of your fingers behind your back again. So you'll have a different pinky finger on top, and it may feel a little awkward. And once again, you'll start to broaden through the collarbones, lift your chest, and maybe you take this a little deeper into a back bend as much as possible. Get the shoulders to support the lift of the chest. And again, take a couple more breaths where you are. As you release on the exhalation, you'll come back onto your hands and knees. You'll take that same block and then take the block a little further down on your mat, and you'll want to have it on its middle height. This may work better for some of you at home. Maybe it doesn't work as much, and you can just let go of the block altogether. Once you come into that tabletop, tuck your toes under. You lift your knees up and off the mat, and you'll stretch yourself all the way back into a downward facing dog. Of course, in downward facing dog, you'll want to stretch out through your fingers. And if you find that the block is not properly situated, you might want to adjust it. It's just, again, a guiding block, really, for you to reach the crown of your head down. And then from that place, as you ground deeply through your hands, you'll want to reach your hips really far back in space and find that same opening across the chest that you did just before. You'll take a few more breaths where you are, extending through your spine as much as possible. And then you can take 5 to 10. And if you need a little break, of course, you just come down to your knees at any time. So we'll do one more breath together if possible. And on the exhalation, you'll just come down towards your knees. You take a little rest in a child's pose. Let your head release all the way down. Maybe the block will just be placed underneath your forehead. It depends a little bit on proportions. You'll just take a couple more breaths. Again, from your child's pose, you'll come back up onto your hands and your knees. And one more exercise with the block. You may have to adjust it, but keep it on that second middle height. Maybe place it more towards the middle of the mat. Find yourself into a downward facing dog just for a moment. Reach all the way back through your hips. And then we'll just be flowing through sort of a different way of approaching a sun salutation. So from your downward facing dog, you'll want to take a big breath in. You'll come all the way forward into a plank position. And then the block is meant to catch just your pelvis or your pubic bone. You'll release the hips down towards the ground. You'll open the chest through the arms and take your shoulders back. The entire time, you want to keep your toes tucked under. And then push into your hands and your feet, lift your hips back up and go back into a downward facing dog. Reach all the way back, allowing for the head to release. And then we'll do that again. As you inhale, you come forward, flowing with your breath. Exhale, you open the chest through the arms. The block just catches your pubic bone. And then you'll push up and back all the way. Exhale into a downward facing dog. We'll do that one last time. So you'll come forward into a plank position. You'll drop the pubic bone down towards the block. You'll catch your chest through the arms, and then it'll be a little different this time. You'll bend your elbows this time. You'll lower the chest just halfway down, keeping the shoulders up and lifted in line with your elbows. Take a big breath where you are. As you exhale, you push up into plank this time, and then you reach all the way back into a downward facing dog again. And then just pause for a moment. If you need to come down to your knees, you do, but if you can, just use one of your hands and you can set your block just to the side. You won't be needing it for the time being. From your downward facing dog, you'll want to reach your right leg up towards the ceiling. So lift it up as high as you can. And this will be a little different. So you'll keep the right leg extended, and then I actually want you to bend your left knee. As you bend your left knee, find the action of pulling the left hip back in space. This just gives your pelvis a little more room to move. And then from there, you'll round your right knee forward into your chest. The left leg naturally will straighten in this plank. And then you'll inhale to reach back again. Bend your left knee once more as you straighten your right leg. We'll do that twice again. So round your right knee forward into your chest. Lift it up as high as you can in your plank. And then reach back as you breathe in, bending your left knee again. Once more, round your right knee forward into your chest. Lift it up as high as you can this time. Step your foot to your right thumb. Drop your back knee to the ground, and you can keep your back toes tucked or not. It's up to you. As you come up into Anjaneyasana, you'll hook your thumbs and you'll stretch your fingers apart. Beautiful. I love to use this modification of the arms just to get a sense that your chest can really broaden and you can lift your heart as much as possible. That's it. Beautiful. Keep stretching through your fingers and broadening through the collarbones, lifting your chest up. You'll take one more big breath in. Try and lift yourself up just a little out of your front leg. And then as you exhale, take a side stretch to your right. So use your thumbs to pull over your torso towards the right as much as possible, keeping the heart always broadening and lifting, of course. And then you'll take just a couple more breaths here, just enough to get that left side of your body to lengthen as much as you can. And then you'll come back to center, take a big breath. You'll release the hands behind your back, you'll interlace your fingers, and once again you'll lift your chest up towards the ceiling. Option to look straight ahead, or you can just look up if you're more comfortable. You'll take another full breath in, and then you'll come out of it. You can re-extend the arms over your head. Take your hands all the way down to the floor. Lift your back knee and step yourself back into a downward facing dog. Pause for a moment in your downward facing dog. You have the option to grab your block again if you'd like. You can set it up so it's underneath your pubic bone once more. Or you can do it without a block this time if you prefer. It's a little more of a challenge. You'll inhale, you'll bring yourself all the way forward into a plank. And again, as you drop your pelvis, the block will catch the thighs or maybe the pubic bone, broaden through your chest, and then go back into a downward facing dog. Exhale all the way. Beautiful. If you want to try it once without the block, you can. You'll come forward. You really need to use the strength of your legs. You'll drop your pelvis. Keep the arms straight. Open the chest. Take your shoulders back. And then push back all the way into a downward facing dog. So we'll do it one more time like that. You'll start with the arms straight and the toes tucked under. Just drop the pelvis. Catch the chest through the arms. This time, bend your elbows. Take your chest just to hover in Chaturanga Dandasana. Take a breath here if you can. Exhale the breath all the way and push up plank. Go back into a downward facing dog. Rest for a moment before we do the left side. Really extend back through both your hips. And then again, if you need to set the block aside, if you were using it, just take a moment to set it aside. And once you get into your downward facing dog, you'll take a big breath to reach your left leg up towards the sky again. And once more, you're going to bend your right knee. As you bend your right knee, try to get that right hip to move back in space a little more. And then take your left knee forward into your chest. Round. Maybe the forehead reaches towards the knee a little more. And then reach back all the way. Bend your right knee again as you extend the left leg. Exhale, left knee forward into your chest. Lift it up even higher. Round. Use your core. Reach back all the way. Last one. Inhale. Bend your right knee. And then exhale. Take your left knee forward. Lift it up high to step the foot towards your left thumb. Tap your back knee on the ground. As you come up, try and switch which thumb is in front as you hook them. Spread your fingers wide. And then as you spread your fingers, think of spreading the chest. You'll take a big breath just at center. As you exhale, you'll shift yourself over towards the left. The legs are super strong in this. You want to think of moving the left hip back, the right thigh forward as much as possible. Keep your breath moving through. Just a couple more moments here. And then again, you'll bring yourself to center as you breathe in. You'll release the hands. You'll reach the hands behind your back in your lunge. You'll interlace your fingers. Try and go through the trouble of switching the interlace. And then lift your chest into a back bend. Again, you have the option of looking always straight ahead, or if you're more comfortable, you start to take your gaze up towards the ceiling, really getting that freeing expression through your chest. You'll take another breath, and as you come out, re-extend the arms over your head. Breathe in. Take your hands down to the floor as you breathe out, and then step yourself back into a downward facing dog. This time we'll move through a regular vinyasa. So you'll just shift yourself forward into a plank position. You'll lower down, chaturanga with control. Bend your elbows. Upward facing dog. Find that lift in the chest. And then move back as you exhale, downward facing dog. Beautiful. Pause again for a moment. And then in this downward facing dog, we'll do something a little different. So you'll take a block between your thighs. You can come down to your knees, or you can just do it in your downward facing dog. And you can just place the block. I like the first width, but if a medium width or middle width is good for you, then use that instead. Really try to squeeze the block between your thighs. You want to feel the strength in your thighs squeezing in towards your bones, slightly pushing the block back in space. And then as you inhale, you'll come forward all the way into a plank again, like we did before in Chaturanga, except this time you're going to lower all the way down to the ground with control. So you'll start to bend your elbows, almost like you're resisting the floor beneath you. Slow, 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 gaining a little strength. You'll come down towards the belly for a moment. Then you'll come up onto your forearms once you reach the floor. Don't forget about your block. You'll come up into a Sphinx pose. Beautiful. You want to have the elbows directly underneath your shoulders. And then it's not so much that you want to push down to lift the chest. It's almost like you want to drag your mat back towards you so you can broaden the chest forward. Squeeze the block between your thighs. And then you'll bend your right knee. You might want to take your left elbow a little wider. Sometimes that's nice. With your right hand, you'll reach back and take a hold of your right foot. You'll have two options here. Keep squeezing the block, though, whichever option you're doing. And then you'll do either a half bow, you're just holding onto your foot, kind of getting an opening through your quad. You'll squeeze through your thighs as much as you can. Try not to lift your right hip off the mat. Try and release it back down. Take a couple of breaths. Another option you might want to do And this involves a little more shoulder flexibility in a way. You'll have to spin the arm around to eventually get into a half frog. So the elbow will eventually rotate up towards the ceiling. Again, you want to come back to that block. It's there for a purpose, to remind your thighs to get strong, to squeeze. You'll take one more breath. As you exhale, you'll release, take a little rest. Maybe just come down to the floor, left cheek down. You can take your elbows wide and you can rest. You can use your hands as a pillow. I'll just take a couple of moments here. Feeling the length in your spine. Feeling the breath soften towards the earth. And then you'll come back to center again. Find your way onto your forearms. If you need to readjust the block, that's totally natural and sometimes necessary, so you just do that. And then you'll do your left side. It's always interesting to notice if one side is obviously more challenging than the other. And so just notice if your quads are feeling tighter on one side, you'll grab your foot. You'll do either your half bow variation, try and do the same variation on both sides, even if one side is easier for you. Or again, you'll spin that left elbow up towards the ceiling, something to work towards. For some of us, it's a little easier depending on the shoulders. And then take a moment here, it's interesting, to try and find that opening of the chest so you're not just collapsing into your right side body to compensate. You'll take a couple more breaths. Squeeze that block to get the opening across your quads. One more breath in. Right leg stays grounded. And then you'll exhale to release. Great. Take a little rest. You'll bring your other cheek down. You can take your elbows to the side, whatever's comfortable for you. You can forget all about that block. You can set it aside. It might be nice to kind of rock your legs a little bit. Just let it all go here. And then whenever you feel ready, you'll find your way into a child's pose. So you'll just use your hands, you'll push yourself up, you'll go all the way back into a child's pose, and then choose a variation that's more comfortable for you. If your arms are feeling tired from today's little sequence, you can maybe bring the arms down by your sides. If it's more comfortable, you can keep the arms extended. It's really up to you. Just try and get your shoulders to soften down, for your head to be super heavy. Once you feel like you've had a little rest, you'll roll yourself up to sit on your heels. And before we close today's class with our final pose, we'll do just one more back bend to ensure that your energy is right up to get you through the day. So we'll do a camel pose. And with camel pose, it's one of those things, some people prefer to have a little more padding for the knees. So you might want to use a blanket. If you don't have a blanket, you could just very easily fold your mat either once or even twice. You'll have extra padding for your knees. I'll let you, again, choose whether you use a block or not. It's always a great reminder for the thighs to stay strong. So you'll come up to your knees when you're ready. You'll have your knees in line with your hips. So you want everything to be hip width. If you're using a block, you'll take the block again between your thighs. Like I said, I always prefer to have it just on this width. If you need it a little wider, just go for it. And then maybe you lift it up a little more towards the pelvis. So it's not so much towards your knees. Really squeeze that block. Another option you might want to consider is whether you tuck your toes underneath or not. You can keep them pointed, which will make the back bend a little more challenging. Otherwise, you keep them tucked under if you're reaching back. So from here, I like to start with my hands on the low back. You'll draw the elbows back in space. You'll lift the chest up towards the ceiling. When you're ready, as you exhale, you start to move back in space. And if you feel up for it, you'll reach your hands down one at a time towards your heels. Try and take your fingers to the inside of your heels, the thumbs on the outside. Keep squeezing through the block if you're using it, and then really try and find the lift in the sternum. Broaden through the chest, opening your heart towards the ceiling. You'll want to take about 5 breaths here. If you can only do 3, that's fine, but just really stay with it. Get your shoulders to soften, and then to come out of it, I like to use my hands to come out just to support the low back. You'll slowly come up. You'll point your toes if they're tucked. You'll sit back on your heels again. I like to take a moment just sitting here, palms on thighs. You can close your eyes. Just take a moment to really absorb what just happened, where your energy is at. Maybe you choose to do a second back bend if you have a little more time today. And then whenever you feel ready to release from that, you'll just drop to one hip. You'll set your block aside. You'll swing your legs forward in front of you. And you'll just do a forward bend just to get a little release through your spine. So once you have your legs out in front of you, you'll want to have your feet together. You'll want to flex your toes, reach the heels forward. Use your hands for a little support to get a lift through the low back in particular. And then try and keep that lift as you extend the arms up and over your head. You breathe in. As you exhale, you fold over your legs. Don't be so worried whether you can reach for your feet or not. Another option would just be to take your hands to your shins or even the hands down towards your mat. Take a moment to pause here, take a little breath and open your chest, lift just a little. And then as you exhale, you fold again over your legs. More than anything, I want you to take your breath into your back. Sure, you're opening up through your hamstrings as well, getting that release from the quads. But for now, you're just taking the breath into your back, getting the shoulders to soften down, getting your head to release as much as possible. And then, again, I give you the option to do as many breaths as possible, whatever feels good for you right now in this moment. And then when you're ready, you'll just take a breath to lift your chest again. You'll exhale to release, and then you'll slowly come down to roll on your back. You'll want to make yourself super comfortable as you lie on your back. You'll want to have the arms down by your sides, the feet splayed out to the sides, your head super comfortable. If you need any props, a blanket or a pillow, feel free to use that. Give yourself some time to rest here, however much you need. Just really try to savor this moment. You're going to look for these moments where you can pause before you cross into your day, wherever you're at, and just enjoy. Thank you for joining us. We hope to see you tomorrow on Yoga Today. Namaste.